My name is Nate, I'm 29, and for most of my adult life, I've been the kind of guy who tries to keep the peace, even when it costs me. I don't like drama. I don't raise my voice. I was raised to think that keeping my head down and not making waves was the same thing as being mature. But lately, I've started to wonder if all that calm just made me an easy target. I live with my parents. Not because I'm lazy, not because I'm mooching, but because in 2021, my dad lost his job and my mom's hours were slashed at work. They were on the verge of losing the house. At the time, I had just started a solid job in IT and had a good amount saved up. So I stepped in. Quietly. I offered to cover the mortgage just for a few months while they got back on their feet. That was the plan. That was 3.5 years ago. They never really got back on their feet, and I never stopped paying. I didn't mind at first. I was glad to help, and honestly, I thought they appreciated it. I even liked the idea of being the one they could count on, the son who always stepped up. But something changed over the years. Their gratitude turned into entitlement. Their tone shifted. Little digs here and there. Like when I bought a new laptop and my mom scoffed, "Must be nice not having to pay rent." Or when my dad would bark out orders like I was some lazy teen again. "Nate, take the trash out. You're not doing anything all day anyway." I told myself it wasn't worth arguing. I told myself they were just stressed. But then last Thursday happened. We were having dinner, me, my mom, and my dad. Nothing fancy, just some overcooked chicken and microwaved veggies. The TV was playing some game show in the background, and I was half tuned out, staring at my plate. That's when my mom, totally out of nowhere, dropped her fork with a dramatic clatter and said, "You know, you really should be more grateful." I blinked. Grateful? She nodded, eyes locked on me like I was some kind of ungrateful stray they'd taken in. "Yes. We've let you live here all these years without paying a dime. Most parents would have kicked you out ages ago." My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe she said it. At first, I actually thought she was joking, like maybe this was some kind of messed up attempt at humor. But no, she was serious. My dad just kept eating, didn't even look up. I didn't say anything. Not at first. I just slowly reached down to my bag. I had brought it to the table out of habit and pulled out a manila folder. I had printed out the bank statements that morning because something in my gut told me I might need them soon. Maybe I'd finally gotten tired of pretending none of this bothered me. I slid the folder across the table toward her without a word. "What's this?" she asked, eyebrows drawn tight. "Those," I said calmly, "are all the mortgage payments I've made since April 2021. Every single month. Auto-paid from my account. You can check the routing numbers, if you want." My dad finally looked up. "What are you talking about?" I shrugged. "I've been paying the mortgage. You stopped making payments when Dad lost his job, remember? You were a month away from foreclosure. So I covered it. And I kept covering it." Mom's face went pale. "That's not possible. Your father hasn't made a single payment since March 2021, I cut in. I checked. The silence was deafening. The kind of silence that hums in your ears and makes your skin itch. My dad's jaw clenched, but he didn't say anything. My mom just stared at the folder, flipping a page, her hands trembling slightly. "But if you say so," I added, standing up and pushing in my chair, "I'll stop." I turned and left the room, walked upstairs, and shut the door behind me. I didn't slam it. I didn't yell. I didn't even cry. I just sat on my bed and stared at the ceiling, feeling like something inside me had snapped loose. 10 minutes later, there was a soft knock on my door. Then another. Then voices, my dad, trying to sound casual, asking if I wanted dessert. My mom, whispering something I couldn't make out, her tone unusually soft. Another knock. Then another. Like they were trying to pretend it hadn't happened, trying to slide back into normal. But nothing was normal anymore. And what they didn't know was that I had already started looking for apartments. I had savings. I had options. And after years of keeping quiet, I finally had clarity. Because the thing about being the peacekeeper is you start to notice when the people around you mistake your kindness for weakness. And once that line's been crossed, it's hard to unsee it. I didn't open the door. I just sat there, listening to the sound of my parents knocking, and finally realizing I wasn't trapped here anymore. I didn't sleep much that night. Even with the door locked and the hallway lights off, I could hear the muffled footsteps outside my room every hour or so. A soft knock. The whisper of voices. Then silence. My mind wouldn't shut off. I kept going over everything again and again, the look on my mom's face when she opened the folder, the stunned silence from my dad, the weight of years of unspoken resentment pressing down on me like a wet blanket. By morning, the energy in the house had shifted. It was oddly quiet. Too quiet. Normally, my mom would be bustling around the kitchen by 7 a.m., running the dishwasher, listening to her morning radio show. But today? Nothing. Just the hum of the fridge and the creak of old floorboards. I stayed in my room and worked remotely like usual, pretending I didn't hear the soft knock around 9 a.m. or my dad's hesitant voice through the door. "Hey, Nate. Got a minute?" I didn't respond. A few hours later, I heard my phone buzz. It was a text from my mom. "We need to talk. Please come downstairs. When you're ready." No demands. No attitude. Just that. I left her on read. That afternoon, I started packing. Not everything, just the essentials. Clothes, laptop, chargers, passport, that old box of letters from college I never had the heart to throw out. I tossed them into 2 duffel bags and slid them under the bed. Then I opened Zillow and bookmarked 4 one-bedroom apartments within 20 minutes of work. I even called one of the leasing offices and scheduled a tour for the weekend. For once, I didn't feel guilty about making an escape plan. Later that evening, I finally went downstairs. I needed water, and maybe, deep down, I wanted to see if their attitude had actually changed or if it was all performative. My dad was in the living room pretending to watch sports, though he flinched slightly when I walked by. My mom was at the dining table again, the same one from the night before, a new folder in front of her, thicker than mine, full of handwritten notes and envelopes. She looked up and gave me a careful smile. "Nate, I'm glad you're up." I just nodded and headed toward the fridge. She cleared her throat. "I owe you an apology. That froze me mid-step. We didn't know. About the payments. We truly thought." Her voice cracked slightly. "Your father told me he was handling it. That he'd worked something out with the bank. I never saw the statements. I didn't say anything. I just sipped my water and waited." "We were wrong," she said, quieter now. "And last night, what I said was out of line. I was frustrated, and..." "Frustrated with what?" I finally asked. "That you've been living in this house for 3 years without realizing someone else was keeping it from foreclosure? Or frustrated that the person saving you isn't the golden child you expected?" She winced. My dad, still planted on the couch, muttered, "It wasn't intentional, Nate. I was going to tell you. We were just embarrassed." I turned to face him. Embarrassed is one thing. Telling me I should be grateful? That's something else. There was a beat of silence. Then my mom spoke again. "Are you leaving?" I didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, I walked over to the dining table and set my phone down. Opened my banking app. Swiped through 3 years' worth of automated withdrawals, highlighted in green, mortgage payment, $2,350, paid. Again and again and again. I tilted the phone toward her. "I could stop this right now," I said. "I haven't yet. But I could." They both looked terrified. Genuinely terrified. Like they were only now realizing how close they were to losing everything. "I'm not a wallet," I added. "I'm not a kid, either. And if either of you had bothered to ask, really ask, what I've been doing to keep this house going, you might have shown some respect instead of treating me like a freeloader." My mom reached out slowly. "We do respect you. We do." I shook my head. "No, you need me. That's different." She pulled her hand back, quietly folding it in her lap like a child scolded by a teacher. For the first time, my dad didn't argue. He just stared down at his knees, rubbing a spot on his temple like it hurt to even be present. Then came the real kicker. "Nate," my mom said after a long pause, "if we gave you the house, would you stay?" I blinked. "What?" "The deed," she said quickly. "It's still in both our names. But if we signed it over to you, officially, would that change anything?" My stomach twisted. It wasn't just the desperation in her voice. It was what the offer really meant. Not an apology, not a moment of honest remorse, but a bargaining chip. Something transactional. Still trying to negotiate with the son they'd written off 24 hours ago. I didn't respond. Not right away. Instead, I turned, walked back upstairs, and sat on the edge of my bed. I stared at the duffel bags under it, then at the Zillow tab still open on my laptop screen. One listing in particular stood out. Hardwood floors, pet-friendly, 5 minutes from a decent cafe I liked. Available immediately. My phone buzzed again. A text from my dad this time. "We're sorry. Please don't leave. We'll do whatever it takes to fix this." And that was the exact moment, I realized the balance of power had finally shifted. I sat there staring at the text, not replying. The words, "we'll do whatever it takes," echoed in my head. But it was too little, too late. And the worst part was knowing they meant it now only because they were afraid. Not because they suddenly respected me. Not because they had reflected. Just fear. Panic. Desperation to cling onto the lifeline they didn't even realize they'd been leaning on all this time. And I couldn't stop thinking, what would have happened if I hadn't brought those bank statements? If I just swallowed their insults again? Would they have ever acknowledged me at all? Probably not. By Friday morning, I had toured one of the apartments I found online. Clean, spacious, a third-floor unit with a little balcony and quiet neighbors. The leasing manager, Melissa, was this cheerful woman in her 40s who seemed genuinely excited to help. I didn't even have to think twice. I signed the papers right after the tour. The security deposit wasn't an issue. The first month's rent was affordable. I had more than enough to furnish it. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. I didn't tell my parents. Instead, I played it cool all weekend. I let them believe they had time, that I was still deciding, still weighing their offer. My mom suddenly started leaving folded laundry outside my door. My dad knocked Sunday morning and offered to make breakfast. He hadn't done that since I was 13. The eggs were overcooked, but that wasn't the point. The point was, they were trying. Too late, but trying. That night at dinner, another awkward meal of silence and artificial smiles, my dad brought out a legal pad. It was filled with scribbled notes, clauses, property value estimates. "So, I've been looking into transferring the deed," he said carefully, like he was approaching a wild animal. "We'd need to get it notarized, maybe involve a real estate attorney. But we want to make it right." I didn't touch my food. I just listened. "We figured, if we did that," he continued, "you'd feel more secure, more respected. You know, have control over things." My mom chimed in softly, "We know we messed up, but we want to fix it. We can start fresh." And that's when I smiled. Because they didn't realize the house was never the point. It was never about ownership. It was about respect, recognition, basic decency. I didn't want their property. I wanted them to see me as more than the convenient punching bag who happened to keep the roof over their heads. And now they were dangling the house like it was a bribe. A last-ditch effort to win back the golden goose before it flew off. "I appreciate that," I said, my voice level. "Really? But I've already made plans." My mom's fork clinked against her plate. "What do you mean?" "I move out next Friday." The room fell so quiet, I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. My dad opened his mouth like he wanted to object, but couldn't find the words. My mom stared at me like I had just told her I was moving to another continent. You already signed a lease?" she asked. I nodded. "But we thought," she cut herself off, swallowing hard. "We thought we still had time." "That's the thing," I said. "You've had time. Years of it." They were both frozen, like the foundation beneath them had suddenly cracked. "But," I added, "I'm not trying to punish you. I'm just done pretending everything's okay when it's not." My dad let out a sigh, deep and long, like the air had been punched out of him. My mom started tearing up. I saw her reach for a tissue she had tucked under her sleeve. "We need you, Nate," she whispered. I nodded slowly. "I know. And that's the problem." I stood up. Dinner was untouched. My appetite was gone. I wasn't angry anymore. Not like before. I wasn't even sad. Just tired. Tired of carrying weight that wasn't mine. Tired of being needed but never appreciated. Tired of being the fallback plan for two people who only ever seemed to notice me when something went wrong. I paused at the hallway, then looked back at them. "I'll keep paying this month," I said quietly. "You've got until the end of July to figure it out. After that, the payments stop." My dad didn't speak. My mom nodded, tearfully. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a guest in my own home. I felt like the one in control. The one setting boundaries. The one choosing when to walk away. As I went upstairs to start packing more seriously, I could hear them murmuring in the kitchen, hushed and panicked. Probably running numbers. Probably realizing what life was going to look like without me. They didn't know I had already rented a U-Haul. They didn't know I had made copies of every relevant document, just in case. They didn't know I had also called the mortgage company last week to remove myself from any legal obligations tied to the house. But they'd find out soon. I didn't look back when I closed the door behind me on moving day. Friday came like a slow storm. I'd arranged everything with quiet precision, booked the U-Haul for 9 a.m., hired a couple guys off TaskRabbit to help load the bigger furniture I decided to take, and signed the final paperwork for the apartment the day before. I didn't want drama. I didn't want a big goodbye. I wanted silence, closure, clean air. Still, despite all my planning, I had to walk past them to leave. My dad stood by the doorway, arms crossed but slack, like he couldn't decide whether to act offended or defeated. My mom was sitting on the bottom stair with her hands wrung tight, knuckles white. Her eyes were red. I'm not sure if she'd slept. I half expected one of them to block the door, maybe throw out some desperate, "We love you," last-ditch attempt to guilt me into staying. Instead, they just watched. My dad cleared his throat when I reached for the doorknob. "You really going through with this?" I nodded. "I am." He looked like he wanted to say more, maybe launch into one of his old rants about family and loyalty, but the words died in his throat. Maybe he sensed it wouldn't work this time. I left instructions on the table, I added. "How to reset the mortgage payments. The bank will talk to either of you now." I made sure of it. My mom opened her mouth, but I shook my head before she could speak. "Please don't ask me to reconsider. I'm not doing this to hurt you." "Then why?" she whispered. "Why now?" I exhaled slowly. "Because I finally realized I'm not part of this family. Not really. I'm just the safety net, the one who bails everyone out. And I've accepted that. But I'm done playing that role." She didn't argue. That stung more than I expected. I turned the knob, stepped outside, and closed the door gently behind me. No slamming. No screaming. Just finality. The new apartment was blissfully quiet. It wasn't fancy, a bit older, with creaky floorboards and a cracked tile near the bathroom, but it was mine. The first night, I ordered takeout from my favorite Thai place, lit a candle, and watched reruns of an old sitcom I used to love in college. I didn't even unpack most of the boxes. I just sat on the floor, leaning against a wall, letting the quiet wrap around me like a weighted blanket. No one knocking on my door. No one shouting from the hallway. No one asking me to cover the power bill just one more time. It was intoxicating. For the first time in years, I woke up Saturday morning without that heavy pit in my stomach. I made coffee, played music too loud, danced around the kitchen like a fool. I was happy. Not euphoric, not the Instagram kind of fake joy, just genuinely at peace. And that's something I hadn't felt in a long time. But, of course, peace never lasts forever. By Monday, the texts started coming in. First, it was a photo from my mom, a letter from the bank. It was a past due notice. Then, Mom texted, "Did you really take your name off the account? We can't log in anymore." I didn't respond. An hour later, my dad sent this. "Come on, Nate. You didn't have to burn the whole house down. Just talk to us." I ignored that too. Then came the guilt-tripping text from Mom. "We're trying our best. Things are just really tight right now. Could you at least help with this month's payment? I mean, we gave you everything growing up. This is how you repay us." Dad texted, "You're not punishing us. You're punishing your family." Family. That word again. Used like a club. A leash. I didn't reply. I just turned off read receipts and muted the thread. A week later, I got a call from my Uncle Greg, Dad's older brother. He's one of the few relatives who's always been decent to me, and he'd heard through the grapevine that I'd moved out. He asked if we could get coffee. I figured, why not? We met at a local cafe, and after 5 minutes of small talk, he leaned in and asked, "You really moved out? For good?" I nodded. "Yeah, I had to." He sat back, folded his arms, and said, "Good." That surprised me. He chuckled at my expression. "Nate, your parents have always leaned too hard on you. We all saw it. But they made it look like they were helping you, not the other way around. So why didn't anyone say anything?" I asked. He sighed. "Because you didn't seem like you were drowning. You smiled through it. Paid for things quietly. Never complained. We thought maybe you didn't mind." "I did," I said quietly. "I know. And now they know too." He paid for the coffee. I didn't argue. 2 months passed. During the time, the house officially went into pre-foreclosure. They missed the August and September payments. I'd warned them, even sent them step-by-step instructions, but I guess they expected me to come back. Bail them out again. They tried. Oh, they tried. I got emails from my mom asking if I'd co-sign on a loan. A voicemail from my dad offering to split the deed 50-50 if I just helped out temporarily. At one point, my younger cousin messaged me saying, "Hey, your mom told me you abandoned them. Is that true?" I ignored them all. And then, finally, it happened. I got a call one Thursday morning from an unknown number. It was a realtor. The house was officially on the market not by choice, but because the bank was forcing the sale. My parents were being evicted by the end of October. The realtor apologized. Said he just needed my forwarding address in case of any loose paperwork, since I'd been tied to the property in the past. I gave him my new one. And that was that. The last message I ever got from my mom came a few days later. I hope someday you realize how cruel you've been. We're losing the house, Nate. The house you grew up in. The house your father built. She attached an old photo of me standing in the front yard, age 12, holding a popsicle, grinning with a missing tooth. I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted the message. Not because it didn't mean anything, but because it finally didn't have power over me. It's been almost a year now. I haven't spoken to them since. I heard through Uncle Greg that they moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. My dad's back to doing construction work part-time. My mom took a cashier job at a local grocery store. They're getting by. Struggling, maybe, but that's their struggle now, not mine. As for me, I'm doing better than ever. I started dating someone I met at the leasing office. Turns out, Melissa's niece is an artist who's into photography and indie films. We've been together 6 months. She says I have this calm energy she loves. I tell her it took me nearly 30 years to earn it. Some nights, I still think about that dinner. The folder. The look on my mom's face when she realized I wasn't the helpless son living in her basement. I was the one holding the whole thing together. And the second I let go, it all came crashing down. But that's the thing about holding people up for too long. Eventually, they forget what it feels like to stand on their own. Until you stop. And when you do, they either figure it out or they fall.